Hello, people. I'm Sunny Chayes, and I'm super, super excited to be with you today, as I always am. But today I'm especially excited because we get to talk about some really, really important things. And I'm so happy to be able to bring on a dear friend of mine who happens to be on the other side of the pond. And her name is Ruth Tunnicliffe. And she's written such an important book, and she's had such an important journey. And so today we're really going to be talking about moving from survivorship to thrivership all the way to being an active warrior. And even before that, sort of where we find ourselves in sort of the muck and mire of life. And we all are heroes in a lot of areas. We don't always appreciate that about ourselves but we truly are. We just are. And there can be an area or two where we're so stuck that it takes over our entire life and we just feel like we're a victim to something and we can't seem to find our way out like a mouse in a labyrinth. And so today we're going to be chatting with Ruth Tunnicliffe. So shall we bring her on, Tony? Hello, Ruth. In
Hello.
London. Hello, hello. How are
Hello.
you? So
I'm good,
let's
thank
dive
you.
in. I want to thank you for being with me, and I want to congratulate you for moving through such journeys to being where you are now. And, kind of that's what it's all about. We're just constantly moving and shaking and growing and changing and letting go and bringing some new stuff in and kind of like that. So, right?
Yeah, definitely. Things have definitely changed for me over the last few months, very much so.
Well, so I love the idea of, I think I want to start with just kind of where you, briefly where you feel like you were and where you feel like you are now, just sort of in a nutshell, in a macadamia nutshell.
I think I've got to know myself. I Once I'd finished the book, I felt like I'd um, almost cleansed myself and got a lot of things unraveled and clear in my head. And I think I know myself a lot better now than I did before. And I was constantly trying to find myself. And I think I've actually done that now. I feel more peaceful about things. Um, Still a lot going on in my head, but it has helped me a lot to get things on paper.
Well, one of the things that you and I talked about a lot with this book and reading it and kind of going through the details is that we as humans often regret decisions we've made, beat ourselves up, that sort of thing over time. And it can be really one of the most painful things that we do for ourselves or to ourselves. And understanding, I think one of the things that we chatted a lot about was acknowledging the truth that most humans, I believe, do the best we all can with what we have wherever we are. Hillary Clinton said that, so I'm borrowing that from her. But I do believe that. I think that we as moms go through so much about how we could have done it better, and if there's anything that goes on with our kids, with health or money or emotions or romantic relationships or whatever, it's like, oh gosh, if we had only read more books when they were three or whatever, or bigger things. And so I think acknowledging, I think it's easy to forgive ourselves and kind of let go of the shame when we actually tell the truth to ourselves, which is we did the best with what we had at the time. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled. That's partly why I started to write the book, was I was struggling with my decision that I made over 30 years ago. It was a decision I didn't want to make, but I was sort of forced into it, and I've struggled with it ever since. And to a certain extent, I still am, because it's something that I call my living grief and my living guilt, and I've struggled with it, and I think I'm trying to come to terms with that. But at that time, in that time, I did what I thought was right. And I think that's what you've got to do. And that's what I did. At that time, I did. Obviously, now I would probably do things differently, but I'm a lot older. But at that time, that's the decision I had to make. And I did it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and that's
But
what Yeah, and I think that that's something that we can struggle with all throughout our lives about a lot of different things. Or, should we have this? Should we have that? That word "should" even is like, okay, let's just take that out, put it somewhere else. And so I want to start a little bit. We have all these awesome pictures of you as a little kid and stuff like that. So I want to show some of these. So yeah, so chat about Tony's going to bring up some
Ah,
of these darling pictures. And so this is you as a little one before any of the drama, I guess.
that's me when I was 3 with my 2 older siblings. And
Aw.
that teddy, I've still got that teddy.
Oh.
He's
And we can do
just as old as I am. And that's me with my mum when I was 6 months old. And that's the only picture I've got of me and my mum and me actually as a baby, because in
mm.
those days, I don't think they had a camera, or if they did, they didn't bother taking any pictures of me. They took them of other people. So that's the only picture I've got. And that one is me at my auntie's wedding. And I don't think I was very happy at all. I was very, very shy. I think I was about 4 at that wedding.
Aw.
And I haven't got a lot of pictures of me when I was little. This one, I was about 7, 6 or 7, and that's the school picture with the wacky hair. That I think my mum cut my hair. Um, I always had short hair, but my sister had really long blonde hair and scraped it back into a ponytail right on the top of the head. And I was always very jealous of her gorgeous hair. But
Well,
I
you have
tended to
gorgeous
have
hair
short
now.
hair.
You have gorgeous hair now. So better late than never. I think it's better when we're later to have good stuff. We don't appreciate it when we're young. So
No.
that's you as a little sweet, darling young thing. And then as you got older, you fell into some things where you felt in some kind of ways of life and being with people who were um, not, not kind to you, and you had to make some really really tough decisions and navigate through something that might, some people might call victimhood or something. The survival word, what is the word that we came up with before survival?
I was submissive.
Submissive. Thank you. I
Yeah,
was
I
looking in my
was.
notes and I couldn't find it. And it's like
Yeah.
starting from a submissive, which I think is, again, so true. And I think for all of us to really, again, if we want to be solutionaries, it's so important to at least first tell the truth about if there is a problem, to say, yes, indeed there is, or it's a challenge, a situation, and
Mm.
then what it really is, and then moving. So you were a submissive. I mean, I think that's really bold of you to say. I do.
I
And
was.
honest.
I was. I think being the youngest of the family, I was. I think when I was born, I was always small and I was always the baby, and I was treated like that, but in not a bad way. But I was very much. I felt like the runt of the family, if you like, and I always felt like. Um, I was the others were getting all the attention and I wasn't, sort of thing, and that wasn't a bad thing, but that's how I felt. So I was always trying to, I suppose, get people's attention, really. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's that could be why I've made certain decisions with certain people. I don't know. I've always wanted to please people and look after people and do the right thing for other people. And sometimes I've got lost along the way because I've got, people have taken advantage of that, my good nature. And
Yes,
that's
they
happened
have.
quite a lot. Yeah.
Well, and reading your book, I mean, one of the things that I found was that you really allowed a lot of, bleep, 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 like not good stuff. And sometimes as I'm reading the book, I'm like, girl, don't go home with that guy, or leave the bar earlier. If it was a movie, I'd be throwing popcorn at the screen, like, stop it, girl. Do you not see that this is, I mean, the audience can see this dude being, not good for you a mile away, but you're just like, la, 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 he needs me, or if I leave, it's going to make more problems for him, or if I do this, I'm going to upset the apple cart. And I'm just thinking, wow, where are you in this? Like, where
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah. I think I've always put me down the list, because I've always thought, my job is to look after other people, and I've always put other people first. And that's what I've done in relationships, and to my detriment, really. But it's my nature, and I'm an optimist, and I always think things will get better, and if I stay, it'll get better, and I live on in hope, and it'll never happen again, and I always think good. I always try and think on the good side of things, and live in hope, and that's what I've done for a long time, and what I did do. But there are times when you've got to think about yourself, and I found that very difficult, and still do to a certain extent.
Yeah, you do. And yet at the same time you've written this very brave book and stuff. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking of this very it's part of the sacred spiritual community very, very deeply, and that is this sort of Saint Francis of Assisi complex. It's like it's not spiritual to have too much money. It's not spiritual to take too much for myself. It's not spiritual to think of myself first. I must be this sort of martyr. I must be this Saint Francis of Assisi, except he had it down and we sort of don't. So
Mm,
he was a saint and I'm a mortal for sure.
mm,
So I think
mm.
what happens, and many people talk about it. Michael Beckwith, Marianne Williamson. I mean, just every spiritual person I know these last, I'd say 5 years especially, are saying, guys out there, it's okay to have money. It's okay to have prosperity. It's okay to think of yourself first. And I think of something many, many years ago. And I would use this as an analogy, and now people use it a lot. But that is when you're on a plane and they tell the moms to put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then your kid. Well, I used to use that as an analogy a lot. And as I say, people use it a lot now. But what people may not know who are not moms or yet or whatever is that when I was on planes years ago and I had a 3-year-old next to me or a 2-year-old, they would say it, in the mic in the front where they're showing all the different stuff and everything. And then the stewardesses, as they were called then, would come over and look in my eyes and stare at me and say, "We are not kidding. Put it
Mm,
on you
mm.
first." Because our inclination, it gives me the chills even saying this,
I know.
our natural inclination is to do it for our kid first. And so they would be like trying to break through that thing and say, "You know what, we are not kidding here." So it wasn't
Yeah,
enough to just make it was like, and they went to every mom and like stared them down. And I thought that was so interesting because they really understood that we naturally, if there was an emergency, wouldn't do it. So it was this, they had to penetrate this membrane. And
mm,
so, yeah, so I say that to you because I see that you really felt so much to the detriment of you, where your oxygen tank was like on empty, and you're just
mm.
absolutely making sure that not even important people, if I might be so bold as to say, in your life, you were absolutely going the extra mile for them,
Yeah.
when they, certainly wouldn't have done it for you and all of that. And I want you to comment to that. And I'm sort of chatting a bit, but I also want to say just briefly that we really are at a time now where I just feel like I want to look in the camera and say it is okay to put the mask on ourselves first. It is way more than okay. It is like it's crucial because I feel like we're sort of many are running around and with the St. Francis thing going on and and the guilt and the shame and the non-trust and what's going on in the universe and what's happening with COVID, and there's just so many things. So it's like if we can ground and center and say it's okay, it is okay. As a matter of fact, it's better. So thank you
Mm.
for letting me say that. And thank you guys
Yeah.
for letting me say that right to the camera, like they said to me when I was little. But yeah, so what do you have to say to that, my dear
I,
Missy?
I mean, I totally agree. If it was my choice, I would straight away put the mask on the child and not me. Because that's just the way I'm conditioned. I always think, oh my God, save them. But you can't if you don't save yourself. And I sort of, in with the decision that I made to leave the children, was basically, I mean, I was forced to do it because um, my husband at that time told me that if I didn't, I could never take them. They weren't my children; they were his, and he'd brainwashed me for years saying that. And you begin to believe that, and he would harm himself if I took them, and I couldn't have that. I couldn't let that happen, because how could I live with that, and how could the children live with that? So my dilemma was, well, don't think about me, think about them, think about him actually, which is what I did, and I put him first, and let him stay in the house with the children, and I was the one that was frantically trying to build another life and try to involve the children at the same time, and it's just been almost impossible at times, and especially emotionally. Being away, a mother being away from her children is just a nightmare, and it's horrendous to live with, and it's taken a long time for me to be able to talk about it because it's heartbreaking. But I'm conditioned where I just think, well, my job in life is to look after other people and put them before me, and I'll be okay. I'll get by. I'm fine, and I'm still a bit like that. You think, oh, I'll get by. Um, and sometimes that's probably not the right thing, but it's just the way I am.
Well, I think there's a grace in that, and that's part of the sort of walking the fine line of a tightrope, because it's to be that giving and sincere and really knowing that it's a or feeling that that's the right thing. I think if we go deeper with that, though, that can be and only be when we have complete trust in ourselves, we have complete trust in the universe, we have complete trust in the way we interact in the universe. I mean, complete. Because if we don't, then we're being martyrs, because then we feel like, we can really truly feel like all is well with me. God, the universe, spirit, whatever is just with me. The angels are playing with me all the time. I'm my heart's in the right place. All is well, all is well, all is well. And then I can give this money, or I can give this time, or I can do whatever I'm giving out, because I'm totally fulfilled and filled up, to here inside. And I trust myself and all of that. And if we don't have that trust, then it goes amok,
Mm.
right?
I think you're right, and I think that was a lot of my problem, was that I didn't trust myself. I had no confidence. I was very shy. When I was a child, I was very shy, and I think being the youngest as well, you you sort of, you're not left out but deliberately, but you're sort of always the one at the back, or and I was the youngest in my class at school, so I struggled to get, I couldn't. God, I didn't keep up very well, and I couldn't concentrate. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and I think that went through right into through my teens as well. Um, and I do think a lot of it was down to confidence, and I just thought, I've just got to do the right thing for other people, because then I'll be okay anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the right thing to do. You've got to think of yourself, and it's taken me a long time to learn that, and I wish I had
Mm-hmm.
had more confidence to think of myself at that time, and haven't had to struggle with this decision that I made at that time for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that goes with that, and the decisions that I've made since then, because of what I did and the guilt that I was living with, I think has been tarnished. A lot of my life has been tarnished by that one decision that I
Wow.
made to sort of save him and not me, which
Wow.
was selfless, but in a way probably definitely the wrong thing for me to do. But you know I did it, and I've just got to live with that, and
Well, and you
hopefully
are.
inspire others.
I didn't mean to speak on your words, but you
Yeah.
are, and that's the whole point. I mean, a lot has changed since those days. And again, when I think of the story, I think of the fact that you were not really understanding how important you were to your kids. It's not even so much your ex husband. It's like you really believed, and you absolutely 100% believed at that time, they were better off in their home with their dad. And that, if I dare say, you sort of didn't matter. And
Yeah.
and that's the saddest part to me. That's like, because of course the mom honestly really does matter more than the dad. I mean, it's
Mm.
just the way it is. But again, we do what we think is right. And I've had experiences like that myself, where I made decisions because I didn't understand how much I actually meant to my kids, and how much it mattered what I did, and that doing something else wasn't as important that I thought was important, if it had to do with something material as opposed to me, just being present with them. And so
Mm.
I think that's a hard one. By the way, I want to ask you, I have this beautiful background behind me and I want you to, because you sent this to me. So what are we looking at behind me?
This is Canal Street, actually, in Manchester. It's the
Oh,
gay scene. Um, and it's a very, very popular place for, a lot of gay bars and clubs, and that's it during the day. It's actually a really nice picture of it. It's not usually as clean as that.
and then what are we
But
looking
yeah,
at now?
that's the same street. That's Canal Street, but from the other end.
I see. And this is where you
Yeah.
spent a bit of your time in your
Yeah, yeah. I
20s.
mean, after I made the decision to not go back, because actually that's important to me. I didn't actually make the decision to knowing I was leaving the children. I just left and didn't go back, and there is a massive difference. And actually, what you were saying before as well, I think a lot of that decision was because for years I'd been browbeaten by my ex-husband and almost brainwashed.
Yeah.
And when you're that low, you don't think of yourself as being worth staying, or being a good mother, or, when you're told you're not for so many years. And this is what I want to get across to other people. You are worth it and you are a mother. And no one should ever make you feel like you shouldn't be with your children. And that's what I've had to live with. But anyway, going back to the pictures that you've just seen, that was a time when I was trying to get on my feet, and I met a gay man called Billy in the book, and he took me to the gay scene, and I was with him for about 2 years, and it was just wild. It was like having a boyfriend and girlfriend all rolled into one. I mean, he took ages to get ready. It took longer to get ready to go out than I did. And it was such fun. But it was a wild time. And I think it was because I just needed to escape from the grief that I was going through. And it was my escape. And looking back, it wasn't a good thing to do. But, you do these things to get through life because you can't cope with the reality of things that were going on. And that's what I did. And so that was my escape, going to those clubs and pubs with him,
Well, it was
which was fun.
yeah, it was so fun to read about those in the book. Well, what I'd like to also chat about what you personally think about moving from these things you're talking about yourself, where you felt like, sort of in between submissive to survivor, and you were kind of toggling back and forth with that, I feel. And at
Mm.
times, again, the Venn diagram was a bit of both. And then you, you move through that. And I think that's so important to talk about because I think you really move to, I mean, when we were even chatting, to allow you to feel that you are an actual inspiring warrior, which you are now. And Tony, I think we have a picture somewhere about Ruth holding her hands up like this. And when we were talking, I was talking to you about that, and I was saying about how when the gymnast, I just imagine, because I don't really know any gymnasts, but I imagine when I watch the Olympics and I see those young girls doing those amazing things, triple flip on that little beam, and they're doing this and that, and then they stick it, and I'm
Yeah,
thinking, oh my God, they must have some word or phrase they say to themselves to be able to like land it and stick it, as they call it in the biz. And I'm
yeah,
thinking, what is that? And there
that's
you
it.
are. Landing it, and that's a birthday, right?
That's my 50th, actually. That's my 50th
Lovely.
birthday. And all my children were there. And that was why I was so happy like that. And that was my moment. Finally, after a long time, I'd got all three of, because I've got three children, all three of them in the same room together. And I was just on cloud nine because that's all
Yes.
I ever wanted.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
that was a big moment for me that day. It really was.
Well, and don't you feel, which is so beautiful, and don't you feel like when we were chatting about that idea of landing it, and I think that it would be a great tool for all of us to have some sort of thing like that, like I mean, I sort of feel like that at the end of a show. I feel like, yay, I did it. I landed it. I stuck it, whatever those terms are.
Mm.
And I feel so happy because, I never really know. I never know what you guys are up to. I never know how the show's going to go. I mean, we plan and do this and that and everything. And then Tony hits the button and we go, and it's like, what's going to happen? And so even though I've done this for almost 10 years, I always feel a little trepidation before, like excitement, and I always feel like I've landed it when it's over.
Mm.
And so do you have something now? I mean, that you feel, I mean, I feel like it's a great tool that we can use. Maybe we're not always landing something, but to like at least bring us along a little bit closer to sticking it.
Yeah, I mean, writing the book, well, there's more than one book. That when I say the book, I wrote basically we got locked down. I got made redundant. I started writing this book in 2012 and could never pick it back up again because a lot of the time I was too upset. I didn't have enough time. And I'm a big believer in fate. And the first lockdown, I got time to do it. I needed a good, clear 3 months to do it, and I picked the book up and I started writing. Once I started, I could not stop. It was just all coming to me all the time. And I just wrote and wrote for about 6 weeks non-stop and finished the book. And it ended up being about 180,000 words. So then I sent it off to the publisher and my agent, and they said, wow, that's War and Peace. So you need to split it. So we split it into three. But that was my landing moment when I never forget the last few lines of the actual whole book. That feeling was just euphoric that I'd actually done it, because I haven't read a book, which you might find hard to believe, but I haven't read a book because I can't concentrate long enough to read a book.
Mm.
I'll start thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner or what I'm going to have, what I need to get from the shops, and then I'm just staring at the pages, so I can't concentrate. So for me to write a book is pretty good. So when I wrote the last few lines, that was when I felt like I'd got that gymnast moment, and I stuck it, and my arms went up. And it's the feeling of just unraveling everything. And then, when people started to be, I had some beta readers who were reading it along the way, and they kept saying, this is so inspiring. You're so inspiring. You can inspire so many other people. And that's what made me think, actually, yes, I could, because the message I want to give is don't be a doormat, be yourself and think of yourself. Don't do what I did and live for so many years thinking of other people. I mean, yes, think about others. Everybody has to do that. But don't put them before yourself to your detriment. And that's exactly what I did. So that's my message. But yeah, that was my big moment.
I love that so much. And to love, honor, and betray. I love that title. It really brings it all in together. And the two wedding bands with the sort of
Yeah.
what looks like a handcuff links. I mean, it's like yikes, yikes. But you know what? I mean, that we are here for learning. That's the reason we come here. It really is. And also I do believe at this point in my age that I am now that we really now really can have joy, and we really can have peace, and we really can play and have fun. And that might sound frivolous, and that's coming from me. I mean, I'm a social activist, and I've spent many days, weeks, and months crying my eyes out about everything in Rwanda and this thing and that thing. And it's really I've come to a place now where I realize that I will always be an activist. I'll always do what I can do. I'll always use my power of one. And yet I also really understand that my joy and my peace and my DNA and mitochondria calming down and not feeling like I have to save other people, other situations, trees, the water, the planet, and realize, yes, I have my bit to do in my corner of the world, and to sort of let go a bit and say, yes, and I will do it to the best that I ever can. And the joy and the peace and the fun and the singing and the dancing and the being with people and the great conversation and lovely tea and that sort of thing is really also why we're here. We're not just here to be St. Francis of Assisi, and we're just not. I think It's a balance, 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 balance.
Mm.
My new favorite word. But does it, do you, are you getting there? Do you feel what I'm feeling?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do to a certain extent. Yeah, I do. I agree with that. I think, for me, I think what's come out of writing the book and finishing it and everything is I do know myself better. I've got more peaceful with myself, and I do feel stronger, a lot stronger emotionally than I've ever felt because I've made sense of everything in my own head. I still have a long way to go, but I do feel that now I can help other people. I know I can because people who have been through similar to me, I can actually experience it and I can feel it. If someone was talking to me about they've been through what I've been through, I know I would understand it. Whereas sometimes, I've been for counselling in the past, and although it's been good and everything, you just don't feel like they understand. But I know that I do understand, and that's what has come from doing this. As well as the cathartic side of it, getting to know myself, getting to love myself again. Also, that the fact that I could help a lot of other people and inspire a lot of other people not to do the same things that I've done, and that's my mission.
Well, also, when you say not to do what you've done, I think underneath that, underpinning of that is why do people do what you did? And so to sort of say, no, no, don't do this. Again, I think what you're probably, and what I've heard you say to me and to others, is that it's really about the self love and it's really about perhaps catching it early, perhaps
Mm,
feeling those red flags, perhaps giving yourself the permission that when someone is mistreating you in any sort of way, it's like, whoa, 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 that's not rolling with me. I don't really know who you think you're talking to or acting like that with, but,
mm,
and sometimes it means we're not going to necessarily change them, but it does mean that we love them, and
mm,
wish them the best, and we take ourselves out of the situation. So I think that is really the important
mm,
distinction, because we don't always have to go to battle with our situations, if it be any kind of situations we have in our life. It's not about the battling and becoming victorious. It's about the wisdom to know,
mm.
the discernment to
It
know,
is.
the
It's
judgment,
Yeah.
the choice of knowing, like for me, there's certain foods I just cannot eat or I'll get migraines. So it doesn't make sense for me to eat them as much as I love them. But,
Mm,
why would I do that? It's like, okay,
mm,
so I don't have to, I get to make sure that I take care of myself that way. So if I know I'm going to be traveling, I may need to bring my own food or something so I don't compromise my health, and then I become like not very fun at all. When I have a migraine, I'm like yikes. So it's really you know what it is also, it's really taking responsibility. It's taking responsibility for our own energy and what we do and how we do it, because when we really are in our center, in our place, we are much less, and I've learned this the hard way, needy. We're much less, um, again, needing things from other people or causing
mm,
issues that other people need to come in and sort of save us from, or whatever. It just becomes so much more tidy and organized and lovely when we just really know ourselves, know what works for us, and it's not even good or bad. It's just this is what works for us, and acting accordingly in our life as much as we can. And things happen, obviously, but I think there's something really to be said for that. And so I feel like with you, there were times where you had the red flags. It was
mm.
obvious, again,
I
to the
did.
reader. It's like, oh my God, girl, are you serious with this?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
yet
that's it.
there you
Yeah, I
go
did
in
have.
again. You go
I
in again, and it's like, what is happening,
Mhm.
Ruth? Don't do it. Don't do it. We're begging you, don't do it. And you do anyway. So,
I think when you're in it, that's the message. I think for that is when you're in it, you can't see it. And for all those years, I couldn't see it, or I could see it, but I was denying it. And that's a massive thing because you don't want it to be real. So you deny it, and you don't have strength because you've been browbeaten and you've been told you're useless, or you've been told you're not loved or you're not needed. And you believe it. And that's you've got to get the strength to not believe that, and start believing in yourself. And I didn't do that. And I think that's the important thing, that you do have the confidence and the strength in yourself to stand up for yourself. And of course, I was like 30 years younger, and not as wise and as old as I am now. And I was quite timid, and I was just felt blessed that I actually got a man that wanted to marry me. I thought that I wasn't worthy of that. And so, yeah, you do tend to let things keep going on and going on, because you're an optimist, and you just think, I'll keep going because it will get better. And maybe I deserve it, because that's the other thing. These people are very clever, and they start sort of making you think that it's your fault. And after so long, you believe it is your fault. But you've just got to not to believe that. You've just got to start believing in yourself and start to love yourself. And I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
Yeah, and while you're chatting, I'm just writing some notes down, and I'm just remembering that we have a tendency, some of us, and women a lot for some reason, have a tendency of making excuses for other people and
Yeah.
their behavior. Oh, well, they're tired. I mean, they
Mm,
get drunk and they're belligerent or
mm,
whatever. It's like, oh, well, they didn't eat enough, or oh, they're going through something, or oh, whatever. And we're constantly making excuses for them, and it's
yeah.
really not okay. And people around us, it drives them nuts, because they're like you say, can you not see what that
Mm,
dude's really about? But you're like making all these excuses. And it
mm,
also blends in and bleeds into the spiritual way, that it's like, but everyone is beautiful, and trusting that, like you were saying earlier, they won't do that again, and that was just
yeah.
a one-off. And
Mm,
but they did it because of this, and if we can change
yeah.
where we live, or what their food is, or if they have more
Mm,
money, or it's always something, if we change it, they will be different.
mm,
And the truth is, it kind of doesn't work that way. And it is this mix of, being a lovely, beautiful person who trusts, and like a Pollyanna or Mr. Magoo, and just knowing that everybody has a good soul, and also
mm,
having a bit of trust with ourselves, where we say they aren't really trying to hurt us. They don't really mean it. And at a certain point, it's like we have to understand. We don't have to, but we get to understand that it's really not about us, it's about them. It's like when
yeah.
I eat fried foods or chocolate, it's not that the chocolate is trying to hurt me. It doesn't care. It's just chocolate. Eh, It's me that has a bad reaction to it. And so then it's me who doesn't eat it, or I do eat it or whatever. And I'm using, obviously a funny example in a way, but it is that, where the people are doing what they're doing. And if it affects us, it's, I've known people, and some of the people in your book are like hurricanes. They get into a
Yeah.
loop, and then they take everything down around them, and then
Mm,
they calm down their hurricane. And then they look around and they say, why is everything broken? And why are you crying? And oh my God, what is
mm,
the matter with you? And, it's like this weirdest thing. So it's like, you know what? I'm taking myself away from the hurricane.
mm,
God love the hurricane. They can go hurricane with other people, but I'm not feeling it. I don't like it. It's not good for me. I'm not. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm not spiritual enough. Maybe I'm not wise enough. Maybe I'm not rich enough to pay for
mm.
the consequences, whatever it may be. But we do have the right, and as I say, the responsibility to ourselves and others, because it's, of course, it's the whole enabling thing too. But we do have the
Absolutely.
right to say, we matter, and you know what? It's no biggie. It just doesn't work for me this day or week or month. You were gonna
Yeah,
say, yeah,
definitely. And it's having the strength. And of course, I didn't have the strength at the time. And everything you've just said, I totally agree with it. But when you're going through something like that, you don't get that. You don't have the strength, because you just think, you just blame yourself.
yeah,
And that's how it goes. And the message is, don't. You've just got to see the person for what they are. And it's like you said, it's them that have the problem, not you, but you think it's you. And it's really hard to snap out of that and see it from the outside looking in, because you're in it. So you're looking on the inside out, and you just think, oh, it'll get better. I'll keep doing this. And it's my fault. I shouldn't have done that. Or, yes, like you said, he's got a headache, or, he's having a grumpy day, and it's probably me that's caused it. And sort of blame yourself all the time, and you've got to not do that. And it's so hard to do that, though.
Well, but
And I
that's
wish,
what I want to talk about next because again, it's also propping people up. It's like, oh, well, they had a headache, so I'm
yeah,
gonna, or they drank too much the next day, they have a hangover. I'm gonna get the orange juice. I'm gonna get the coffee. I'm gonna get the toast,
yeah.
whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. That's, you know, uh, honestly, I learned this from Marianne Williamson. But anyway, for any women who are listening to me right now, it's super unsexy to do that because it turns us into like caretakers, which or caregivers, which is extremely not hot to guys. So it's way better. Even when men have like, surgeries or whatever, it's like if you can get a nurse and not be doing all that because it literally is not hot. So I just offer that as a tidbit of, feminine wisdom from Marianne Williamson. And the other thing is, though, that I think again, trusting ourselves and believing in ourselves. So, all this is easier said than done. And in a few minutes, we're going to be rolling off to another land. And I know it's quite late where you are in England right now. So, again, I'm having so much fun with this. And Tony's going to roll through some just fun pictures as we're chatting. But I wanted to ask you, as we're doing that, what are some actual tips that you feel like you've learned or that you can actually, being the inspiring warrior that who you now are, what do you want to say to peeps out there? Look into
I
our
think
camera and tell us, girl.
if you find yourself, if anyone, especially now with COVID and everyone's stuck at home, and during lockdowns and things, it must be dreadful, not being able to get away. But I think the message would be get away, get some help. There is a lot more help out there than when I was going through it. I didn't even have a mobile. We just had a phone on the wall. I didn't have Google. I couldn't find out where I could get some help. Now there's a lot more help out there. And my message would be don't stick it, but just think of yourself more, and definitely take your kids, no matter what. Don't leave them, because that is intolerable. And no mother should have to do that and be robbed of being a mum, which is what I feel I have been. And so my message would be do not do that, no matter what. And get the strength to think about yourself. And yes, we put other people first because that's, women are kind and that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But you've also got to think about yourself. And I wish I had a lot more than I, have. So my message would be think of yourself. If there's any red flags, don't ignore them. Get out. See, speak to your friends. I didn't talk to my friends because I was ashamed. Don't be ashamed. It's you shouldn't be ashamed of anything. And get the help you need, and you can get through it. I'm living proof you can survive and live
Well,
a better life
well,
and the life.
thank yeah, thank you for saying about getting the help, but I'm also thinking a bit even before that. In other words, did you like even now, do you feel like with your healing, I mean, do you use techniques, do you catch yourself when you're perhaps having a negative thought about yourself, and do you have a mechanism to turn that to love, or to turn that, or just to neutralize it somehow? I mean, I've learned to do that because I've had my moments of real pain about stuff, as we all have. And so I feel like even these days when when the thoughts come up or the feelings come up, or, again, ways to get ourselves in a place where we may not need the help and have all the issues. I mean, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I go running. I mean, I do get moments, I still get waves of grief, and I just let them happen, but I don't let them consume me. And there's a difference. It was all consuming at one point, and I just didn't want to carry on. But now I still get them now and again, and I just think, right, snap out of it. There's nothing you can do about it. You've done what you did, and you've just got to get on with your life. You don't know about tomorrow. But no, I mean, exercise is it for me. It's the only thing I do that I don't think. And if I'm feeling particularly low or down or upset or cross with myself or anything, then I want to go running. And it's just liberating. And so I would recommend that. Or go to the gym. I go to the gym as well. Um, and that's what I do. That's the way I look after my mental health is exercise, and I do give myself little slots of time to have a good old think and think things through, and then I don't let myself go on too long and get too deep into it and too low, because that's the danger zone for me. And I know when I hit that zone, that's the time to go running and get myself out and get myself back on my feet and start again. And that's what I do.
And you do something with horses. Do you ride still?
Ah, gosh, I wish I did. I used to. Oh, yes, that horse. That was my first love. Thomas Wood. He was gorgeous. No, sadly, I haven't ridden for years, but I did. I was quite a good rider, actually. I did cross country and show jumping, and I really enjoyed it. It was lovely, but I think my riding days might be over. I would like to go riding again, and that is something that before I pass away, I would like to ride one more time.
At least, because you were a good rider and you can, like
Yeah,
they say, get back on the horse and ride, girl, get back on the horse
yeah.
and ride. Well, I would also offer a couple fun things that I like to do. And one is, we've been sitting and watching Netflix and everything for the last year and a half and all the deals, HBO and all that. And I was working with a lady who had surgery and she wasn't able to, she was on oxygen and stuff. And so it was hard for her to move around. And I said, okay, so pick a thing, but every time something happens on a TV show, you have to get up and dance. So if it is a dog walking in the room, if it is music, like they play background music or something, if it's people kissing, if it's whatever, pick a thing and every time they do it, you have to get up and dance. And she got the biggest crack about of that because, like what I do is I just absolutely get up every time there's music for sure. And I do whatever
Oh,
their dance, like if it's salsa, if it's, whatever it is, I match their deal. So that is a super fun thing to do because the young people have told me, I learned this somewhere, that we should actually get up every 15 minutes. Like, we sit at the computer for an hour,
yeah,
or 2 hours or, whatever, and we're meant to actually get up every 15 minutes and just even stretch, stick it, do
yeah.
whatever, just shake it out, whatever, just even for a short bit, and then sit back and do our work.
Mhm.
And that's really amazing. And singing, toning, chanting, any kind of singing, every
Oh, yeah.
religion, every sacred group or community on earth uses chanting and singing. Every single
Mhm.
one, from the Bushmen to the Catholics to the, I mean, it's all about chanting and singing. So it's that toning of our voice, whether you're a good, singer or not. It doesn't really matter. It's using the voice in a way that just makes a change in your vibration. And so these are some things we can just do. And I feel like these are the things that we can maybe again make a decision ahead of time, so it's like
Mhm.
every time something happens it triggers us, we'll do such and so. and
Mhm.
um and then some way, is there any advice, because we're at the end almost, is there any advice that you have as far as, again with the red flags, that you would recommend people to do even if you couldn't do it? But what, how do you pull yourself back, like hold the reins back and go left or go right? What would you say up to that?
I think, like I said before, if you see any red flags or, people don't change. And I think when you first meet someone, within, well, nowadays, very quickly, you get to know what they're like. And if you see any sign of any red flags, think twice about what you're doing and think about yourself. And don't get drawn in. It's so easy to get drawn in on things now. And just take it slow and think about yourself more. And don't get drawn into something. And if one thing happens, the chances are it will happen again, no matter what they say, no matter how you feel and you make all the excuses. The chances are it will happen again, because it did with me. And you know it, it's a spiral, and just don't if you see a red flag, run.
Well, I like that, and I know many of us know Ian Van Zant. She's just went from, I mean, again, from a submissive to a very wealthy person, and then worked with Oprah, and then didn't work with Oprah, and went through a whole thing about that, and then came back. And one of the things she says is, I mean, she was speaking to women in particular, but it's like if they say whatever it is about them, believe them, because it is true. don't get into your whole world about it. Like, believe them and trust them. And so we are coming to the end of our time, Missy. I'm doing cheers with my tea to you across the pond. And we're here in America, of course, in Hollywood. And love, honor, and betray, and you can check that out on Amazon. It's also, is it on Barnes and Noble now?
It is Barnes and Noble, Waterstones, yeah, foils, and my website.
And yes, and so the website you can see, but it's actually, so I can say it for people listening, ruthtunnicliffe.com, and you can go to that website and check everything out, buy it from there and all that. And there will be more from Ruth in the future because we're doing, she's releasing her second and third book in the new year at some point. So we'll be back to chat with you, Ruth, and
Lovely.
I'll have biscuits with my tea when we do.
Very British.
So indeed, well, I love that. So happy everything to you. And again, guys, remember to do something for yourself today that your future self will be proud of you for doing. So please do that. And Ruth, again, thank you so much for sharing time with us. And we're going to go out to a little tunes and a little applause. And we just thank you.
Thank you.